Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of The Wheels Are Turning, where we'll be exploring the ever-popular phenomenon of cycle tourism. Cycling as a form of tourism has existed pretty much since the bicycle was invented. From the late 1800s through to the 1950s, it wasn't uncommon to find cycling groups throughout Europe and North America hopping on trains with their bikes and going on a multi-day journey. Some may have been a little bit more enthusiastic than others. By the mid-20th century, however, cycle tourism dropped from the handsome, fit, high school jock to the awkward little high school nerd in terms of popularity. So why did this happen? Well, it's pretty simple, and it's called the car. Yet, within the past few decades, people have been switching gears back onto the road of cycling as a form of tourism. By the 1990s and early 2000s, there had been a significant increase in the demand for cyclist tourist infrastructure, and it is predicted that the demand in this market is going to continue to increase. Whether it is the growing concern for personal health, for the environment, or whether people are looking for a new and exciting way to delve into the cultural and social happenings of foreign cities, this prediction does seem to be coming true. Some straightforward statistics show how this growth is becoming a worldwide phenomenon. In 2012, 2.3 billion annual cycling trips were offered in Europe, generating a total of around 60 billion US dollars for the European tourist industry. Cycle tourism has also added $900 million to Wisconsin's economy, similar numbers being seen in the states of Oregon and Michigan, and 72 million to New Zealand's economy. In Ireland, around 9% of all tourists are now traveling by bike. The Netherlands see 2.5 million riders taking overnight visits in the country each year. Even in the last couple decades, a number of projects have been completed designed to meet the demands of this growing industry. There's been the construction of the Route Verte in Quebec, the Danube Cycle Route in Upper Austria, which passes through over 6 European countries, New Zealand's Otago Central Rail Trail, the newly renovated Old Cowling Tunnel Bikeway in Taiwan, and there are 14 different Eurovelo bike routes spanning all throughout Europe. These new developments reflect that cycle tourism is a growing and important niche tourism market that has the potential to provide a range of economic, social, and environmental benefits to regional areas and the wider community. Unfortunately, we're going to have to narrow things down here if we want to gain any kind of in-depth look into cycle tourism within the next 5 minutes. So, now we're going to zoom in and take a closer look into Ontario's cycle tourist industry. Let's start with the demographics. In the current world of cycle tourism, there exists a stereotype of the well-off, educated, middle-aged couple or small group of people looking for an adventurous but also comfortable trip. This stereotype clearly can't apply to every cyclist, but there does appear to be a significant difference between the incomes and educational histories of cycle tourists in comparison to non-cycle tourists, as can be seen in this graph. The graph is depicting the post-secondary degrees and household incomes of cyclists versus non-cyclists in Canada and the US. What is found is that in both cases, cyclists held significantly higher values in each category. And this holds somewhat true in Ontario as well. In a survey conducted in 2009, it was found that 64% of riders were aged from 21 to 50, 40% had an income greater than $75,000, 23% had a household income of more than $100,000, and 38.9% had a post-secondary educational degree. So, this middle-aged, educated, wealthy cycle tourist image is not entirely false. Another interesting fact concerning demographics of Ontario cycle tourists is that most are originally from inside the province. 86% of day travelers and 73% of multi-day travelers live already in Ontario. The second greatest market is Quebec, with 3 million cyclists visiting each year. There is also a good portion of riders coming up from the United States, making up about 4.9% of all cycle tourists. So where are these riders cycling? Well, the most popular destinations for cycle tourism in Ontario can be divided into 3 main locations, all of which have experienced expansions in the industry in recent years. These include Ottawa, Niagara, and Toronto. Through cyclotourism, around $30 million each year is generated for the economies of Ottawa and Niagara combined. The distribution of cyclist spending can be seen in this chart here. For some reason, spending is allocated mostly to food and drinks. Toronto typically receives more tourists than Ottawa and Niagara. However, average spending of these cyclists tends to be lower. And although the industry is growing in Ontario, it is not one of great stability. This graph here shows the distribution of Ontario cycle tourists seen in 2007 and 2008. It highlights both the greater popularity of cycling tourism seen in Toronto in comparison to Ottawa and Niagara. However, it also demonstrates great fluctuations in numbers from one year to the next, perhaps illustrating the dynamic and ever-changing state of cycling tourism in Ontario. In some areas, for instance in Niagara and Toronto, day trips become increasingly popular. However, in others, for instance in Ottawa and Niagara, overnight trips decreased in popularity. In order to reduce these fluctuations and to make cyclotourism a more secure and sustainable industry, a number of organizations in Ontario are making great efforts to improve the current cycling infrastructure. Such organizations include Welcome Cyclists, the Great Waterway, and Cycle Ontario. This is perhaps best seen in recent developments of the Bike Train project in Toronto. The Bike Train project began in 2007 and has transformed a number of passenger rail trains into more bike-friendly modes of transportation. The first route affected by this development was that traveling from Toronto to Niagara. The plan was headed by Justin Lafontaine to capitalize on the popularity of the Niagara Greenbelt as a cycling destination. The project has been quite successful, winning 2 notable tourism awards, the Ontario Tourism Marketing Partnership Corporation's Award for Best Tourism Marketing Partnership, and the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario's Excellence Award for Tourism Innovation. Additionally, in a survey conducted in 2009, it was found that 99% of travelers rated their experience on the bike train as either very good or excellent. 95% stated that they are likely to reuse the bike train on a similar cycling trip. Over 2,500 cyclists have taken advantage of this easy and accessible form of transportation, and plans have been made to expand the bike train project throughout Ontario. The many routes can be seen here. In 2009, the Minister of Tourism, Monique Smith, stated that by expanding the bike train service to select parts of the province, this initiative is helping revitalize local tourism and is positioning Ontario as a go-to destination for cycling holidays. Most importantly, this project has proven to be attracting cyclotourists who would have otherwise not had the chance to visit the Niagara area. In a pilot study, it was found that a staggering 71% of the cyclists had rarely or never been able to visit the Niagara region. This provides the hope that there does exist a strong demand by cyclotourists for increased cycling infrastructure and transportation systems in Ontario. So, where does Ontario stand right now? Well, a lot more work still needs to be done if Ontario is hoping to catch up to the European nations whose cyclotourist industries are currently booming. With continued interest by local tourists, however, and with the development of similarly effective projects to the bike train, it is possible that Ontario could become a popular destination for not only local travelers, but also international travelers. So, if you've been looking for that ideal summer vacation, the one that will let you get some fresh air, spend some time with friends, and explore the countryside, you may want to consider looking into your own backyard. Because I don't know about you, but the fact that Ontario has its very own bike train is something that I plan on checking out.